It's an honor to have the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, with us. You know, Speaker Johnson, as I think about your coming on this program, I think to myself, I don't think anybody at a top level of our government has done more to try and help the state of Israel and to try and fight anti-Semitism than you. It's not Schumer. It's not Biden. It's not Harris. It's you. And you've pushed legislation to support Israel. You've pushed legislation to hold these colleges accountable. You've pushed legislation to protect college students. You've pushed legislation to help get the money and the arms to the state of Israel. You've been fought by Democrats, fought by Schumer, fought by Biden. On this October 7th, what are you thinking about all this? Because I'm sure you've thought a lot about this.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be with you. Thanks for those kind words. I have been thinking a lot about this. I've been thinking about what the biggest lessons are, the things we can take away from the horrific events of October 7th. And I think it boils down to a few things. This is what we all know right now. Number one, we can't ever let our guard down, right? We can't take anti-Semitism or terrorism lightly. These are barbarians on the other side. I mean, they will do despicable things, and they have to be met with overwhelming force. And it's up to us to do that, to hold the line. Another thing, I mean, we know that our enemies will exploit American weakness, right? I mean, the Biden-Harris policy of appeasement and their constant showing of weakness on the world stage has produced all this hostility. I mean, Russia's invasion, October 7th, they all came after the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. Massive foreign policy blunders, and showing this weak hand on the world stage is dangerous, and it has huge ramifications. And lastly, look, our biggest adversaries, China and Russia, are supporting Iran and its terror regime, right? And this fight is against Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran itself. It's also a fight for Western civilization and global security. A strong America is good for the entire world. The bond that America has with Israel is essential. And if Israel wins in the U.S., then freedom and liberty win for everyone around the world. And if Iran wins and China and Russia win, this is all over. I mean, this is for all the marbles, and we've got to take it very seriously. And October 7th reminds us of all that.
When you watch Biden and Harris and Blinken and this guy Sullivan and how they gang up against Israel, how they go against Israel behind the scenes at the UN and the EU with the French and the British, how they're literally withholding a long list of weapon systems and ammunition from Israel while they're lying about it, saying they're not, violating the impoundment of funds. It's unconstitutional. When you watch them talk out of both sides of their mouths, say, you know, we support Israel's right to defend itself. No, Israel has a right to win, doesn't it, Mr. Speaker? Not just defend itself.
Absolutely right. And they have hamstrung Israel. They've not enforced, the oil sanctions on Iran. They've empowered this. And they're still, as you noted, they are absolutely withholding bombs and weapon systems. I mean, it's inexcusable. And by the way, it violates the will of Congress. I mean, we have voted to deliver all this to Israel, and they've thwarted the will of the legislative branch of the government. So it's a dangerous thing. I mean, for the sake of security in Israel, we've got an election in 29 days. I mean, we have to have a Republican Senate majority, keep the House majority, and we have to have President Trump back in the White House. We have to have strength back in the White House. I mean, Iran used to be broke. We used to enforce sanctions on them. This regime is not doing it. And we have to have a leader who unequivocally supports Israel and doesn't stall aid and resources and speak out of both sides of his mouth. I mean, this weakness has caused the disaster that we're witnessing today. And we need strength, and we need it right away. So it can't happen soon enough.
29 days. It's almost frightening, because the consequences are so monumental for our country, for our allies, just so monumental. Let's talk about this for a moment. Kamala Harris didn't attend a single pre-hurricane meeting when it came to Hurricane Helene. To my knowledge, she hasn't been meeting with FEMA. We have this massive new Hurricane Milton that's going to blow through the state of Florida. They come to you at the last minute and they say, hey, FEMA doesn't have any money. They know Congress takes time. They know the members are out running for re-election, including Democrats. Is this just these people are lazy and incompetent and they just don't want to do the hard work of running a country?
I think that's part of it. I think it's utter incompetence. I mean, they have failed the American people with their utter lack of leadership in responding to this hurricane. Mark, I'm from Louisiana. We know hurricanes. We know disasters. We know these events well. The thing about a hurricane is it's entirely foreseeable. We know about a hurricane at least a week in advance and sometimes 2 weeks, right? It's not like a tornado that drops out of the sky or an earthquake. We see it coming, and they knew this was going to happen. We appropriated $20 billion additional dollars Wednesday before last, before everyone went home to go campaign. FEMA has operational dollars for immediate storm, to handle the situation they have, and they've still dropped the ball. Now, we know when the states tabulate their losses and they send the request to the government, obviously Congress is going to act quickly, and it will be bipartisan. But it takes a while to tabulate all that. Right now, FEMA has the resources they need, but they're not using them. They have failed. And I hate to say this, but the American people are suffering, and some will die because of those mistakes.
You're right.
I mean, hundreds are still missing in North Carolina. We got 500,000 people without power and running water in the hills of North Carolina. It is inexcusable, and I think there's going to be a price to be paid for that at the ballot box.
And here comes the second one right behind it. Mr. Speaker, I look at this. They told us for years the border was secure. Then they blame you guys, say the border's not secure. They tell us for years. They just lie to us. I think the ruling class, particularly in the Democrat Party and the left, the gap between the people and Washington, D.C. is so great that they have to lie. They have to raise hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in their campaigns to lie to the American people, tell us inflation isn't as bad as you think, unemployment is not as bad as you think, the border's secure, and if it's not, it's their fault over there. Oh, we have people on the ground. The people in western North Carolina are saying, we haven't seen FEMA people. It takes a week to send out the 82nd Airborne and 2 more days to send out the 101st. Why?
That's the big question. And we know there are military assets available and ready to be deployed, and they weren't. We know that there were volunteer organizations, nonprofits, local churches, and Samaritan's Purse and others who some of these organizations were impeded in trying to get to the people they were trying to serve. Elon Musk, I talked to him myself a couple of nights ago. His Starlink people were trying to get comms, communications to people stuck in the mountains, and FEMA stopped them. Told them they couldn't go because they needed an appointment with the people they were meeting with. I mean, it's madness. We had to cut through all the red tape so that Elon could benevolently try to help people. I mean, it shouldn't be this way, and this is failed leadership. And Kamala Harris cannot lie her way into office. She can't erase this horrific record. She's a radical San Francisco, radical liberal, and she supports everything that the American people are against. And our job is to make sure we prosecute that case and that people know the facts. They're trying to run a campaign on fantasy, not facts. I'm so grateful to you, Mark, for getting the word out constantly on this. You're one of the boldest voices we have, and you got one of the biggest platforms, and I'm so grateful you're willing to use it, my friend.
Well, I thank you. Now, one last message to the American people. Tell them why they need to get out and vote early if their state allows it, and vote now.
We have to vote now. As Trump says so well, we got to make it too big to rig. There's going to be hijinks. There's going to be all sorts of efforts to obscure this. If this race is on record, not rhetoric, policy, not personality, we win every day and Sunday. It's got to happen. You got to get your friends to vote. This is the most important election that we'll ever have. I'm convinced of that. It decides everything. But we can win if the American people will get involved. I hope they will.
President, Senate, House of Representatives, all the other down ballots, you can't forget. You got to vote. You got to vote. You got to vote early. And isn't the other reason if you vote early, then you have time to help get other people out to vote because you're already booked your vote. You've already and also people who raise money, whether it's PACs, the RNC, or candidates, they can then focus on voters they need to get out who may not typically vote. So voting early is very important for many reasons.
Yes, it's a great investment of time and resources because you're right. When those votes are banked early, then we can divert those resources to chasing other ballots and getting other people's votes in. So the more people that vote early, the better off it is. And Democrats have done that better than us in the past. I don't think it's going to be true this year. I think Republicans are going to vote early and get it done. We're counting on that.
All right, Mr. Speaker, thanks for your great work, and you are doing great work. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. Good to talk to you.
Always a pleasure. You take care of yourself.